The race for the next Pickens County Sheriff is on. A crowded Republican primary with 5 candidates making their case to voters. It's a race we're watching closely here at Fox Carolina News ahead of the June 11th primary. And one of the candidates running for Pickens County Sheriff is Michael Ticknor. So, Mr. Ticknor, thank you so much for taking some time with us. I like to start these interviews the same way with every candidate. So what motivated you to run and why now?
So when I worked for the Pickens County Sheriff's Office, I noticed that there was a disconnect between what the leadership thought was happening and what was actually happening. And I also noticed that there were officers that were doing the least amount they could. And so I decided to run because I want to close that disconnect, but I also want to motivate and through leadership begin to excel at the Sheriff's Office. So when we go out to a call, people will say, well, they didn't just help me, they helped me above and beyond what I thought they would. And so we're spoke very highly of, and I want to do that. And I just think that in order to do that, you can hope somebody does that and hope the right candidate gets in, or you can be a part of the solution, and I chose to be a part of the solution.
You talk about that disconnect between what was at the top and actually happening with the deputies. How do you plan to close that disconnect? You said that's something you want to do, but how do you plan on doing that?
So one thing that I want to do for the deputies is I eat lunch and breakfast 365 days a year, and I want to eat lunch and breakfast with one person from the Sheriff's Office every single day, and I'll run through every single one of them in the course of the year, because I want to get to know them. I want to hear what they think, because they see what's happening, especially on the road, and I just want to talk to them, get to know their families. And it's not going to be anything to me I'm already eating, so there's no reason not to have somebody sitting across from me that works with me. I want to do that for them.
You talk about some of your time there at the Pickens County Sheriff's Office. What other experience do you bring to the table?
So I was in the Marine Corps right out of high school. I joined the Liberty Police Department in 2006, and in between the Liberty Police Department and Pickens County Sheriff's Office, there was a time that I was a pastor, and but while working in police work, I have done traffic, I've worked the road, I've worked in schools as a resource officer for high school, elementary school, and I work as the sex offender registrar sergeant in Oconee County right now. And so I've worked a lot of the jobs that the Sheriff's Office offers, but I also earned my Master's of Science degree in Criminal Justice Policy and Leadership to close the gaps of what I didn't know.
Something else, you mentioned a lot of closing the gap, making sure that you get to know certain people. Something you've mentioned during your campaign is that you walked roads less traveled, going to more rural areas on the county to speak with voters. You used some of this time raising awareness of domestic violence. So as sheriff, how do you plan to combat domestic violence?
A lot of what you see when it comes to domestic violence is it's just the aftermath it's already happened to the fullest extent, and domestic violence isn't always where somebody's getting arrested. That's the end. That's when it's been going on for 5 or 10 years. What we're seeing when they get arrested is the end, but it's been happening for a long time. And so I want to work with the women's shelter, and I also want to work with our victims advocates to try to help the public to know that we're here for you. And because that's another factor with domestic violence, is there's a fear that if I tell, people aren't going to protect me. And I want them to know that the Sheriff's Office will protect you, and we will do everything we can. And so you don't have to wait until it's so bad that somebody else has noticed and now they've called the police. But where you'll know, hey, these guys care about me, they're looking out for me, and they'll come to us early so we can stop it early before it gets to needing somebody to be arrested and go to jail for 20 or 30 years.
One of the biggest issues in the upstate is the rise in fentanyl overdoses, especially throughout the country, here at home. So what do you plan to do as sheriff to not only combat drug crimes, but also address overdoses?
Okay, so when it comes to drug crimes, that is one of our biggest issues in Pickens County, and I'll put leadership in place that will put a burning heat on the drug dealers, and they will be what I call oh, there was a term for it. I forgot the term, but anyway. We're going to put a burning heat on them, but mainly the problem, I think if you were to go to the root of it, is drug use and abuse typically starts between 12 and 14 years old. And so I want to put DARE-style education into our public schools to where we're educating kids on what it's all about, because most kids think, well, fentanyl kills people, so if anybody offers me fentanyl, I just won't take that. But the problem is no one's going to offer you fentanyl. They're going to offer you a Xanax, or they're going to offer you some other type of pill that has been laced with fentanyl, and even the person selling it to you may not know that. And so the kids will take something that they think is okay, and then they'll end up dying of a fentanyl overdose. And so I want to educate the kids, because I believe if you educate the kids, you lower the amount of buyers. If you lower the amount of buyers, the sellers will go somewhere else.
Okay, real quickly, day one as sheriff. What does that look like for you? What is your first plan of action for day one, real quick?
All right, so day one of being the sheriff of Pickens County will look exactly like the day before I started. I don't plan on doing anything for the first 30 to 60 days, because if you don't work there currently in leadership, you don't know what's happening. The only person that knows what's going on at the sheriff's office right now is Chuck James, because he's in leadership there. And so I will watch things as they happen and see how they go, and then make adjustments as they're needed. But I don't think anything drastic should happen the first day.
Okay, Michael Ticknor, thank you so much
Thanks,
for your
sir.
time.